So Bears get the invite to the Texas Bowl where they will take on LSU. And that's not too surprising. That's the projections we saw from most outlets the last couple of weeks. It was McMurphy was flipping between Alabama. I think he had Alabama 1 week, had LSU a couple more weeks. That's where Baylor ends up taking on the Tigers in Houston. Notably, with that, and the way this all played out today or Sunday, the way it all played out really pointed to what we were talking about on the show last week. There was no way Texas A&M was going to play Baylor in the Texas Bowl. And it's not because of Baylor. It's not Baylor saying, "Hey, we're not playing A&M." It's A&M saying we're not facing that team. In fact, while A&M usually dodges one Texas team per year in the bowl games, they dodged 2 this year because all the other projections that didn't have, I think Bonaruga had ESPN had A&M in the Texas Bowl against Baylor. Everyone else had A&M playing in the Liberty Bowl, playing against another Big 12 team, but most of the projections had it as the Kansas State Wildcats. And suddenly, after hours of deliberation from the SEC trying to figure out who was going to go where, LSU ends up facing Baylor, and A&M magically ends up in Vegas and is facing USC. This is a classic money talk situation. Because even with the big pockets of the SEC, A&M has some of the biggest pockets, right? Because they would initially get the invite to the Texas Bowl. Oh, no, thank you. Baylor's there. We'll do what we usually do. We'll duck that Texas team and play in the Liberty Bowl. Ooh, actually, Texas Tech is in the Liberty Bowl. We can't face them either. That's on the no-fly list. We've got to go out to Vegas and play a lackluster USC team that no one will remember in 30 years was a lackluster USC team. We'll just have a bowl win over USC. And if we don't, nobody in 2 years is going to remember that it was a lackluster USC team. So it'll go down in the record books as a loss to USC. And there's no shame in that. We're not going to find USC alumni in the grocery store that we go to. They're not going to be in our office that our alumni work at. Sorry, our ex-students work at. They're not going to be anywhere in our lives the way Baylor and Tech will be in every corner of our lives if they beat us. It's just so classic, scared, timid, petrified A&M. It's just right out of central casting. And I got to give some good credit here to Sam Bradshaw from Sikkim 365. He actually laid it all out here. Since A&M moved to the SEC, they have avoided a Texas Bowl invite, which almost always comes with, of course, a Texas team from the Big 12. They have avoided it 8 times. 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 21, 23, and now 24. They will do anything to avoid playing Texas teams. Like, do you have any shame, A&M? Like, do you have any pride, man? Like, how about just having some balls and playing one of these teams? But no, because they avoided UT for over a decade, even though it was one of the best, if not the best, rivalry in all of college football. And they finally get it back because UT goes to the SEC, and bam, they're gone. They're done. They lose to them year 1. Like, it's just so dumb, man. It is so dumb. And it's just classic A&M. Like, we knew this was going to happen. And their soft landing spot is always the Liberty Bowl, and they couldn't even avoid that one either because Tech is there. And God forbid they lose to Tech, right? Tech or Baylor? No way. We'll take USC and whatever comes with it. Whatever comes with it. Matthew makes another good point. Ruben Owens should be back for that game. Like, that's what the chatter is with A&M. So if you're getting like your best recruit ever back, why don't you just play Baylor? But they're scared. They're so scared to lose to Baylor. They've already lost to UT this year, and they're not going to live that down for a whole year. But it's just so funny, man. It's just so funny. Meanwhile, LSU's like, sure, we're a real football program. We'll go play Baylor. Who cares? Yeah, it's a great place for us to go with our alumni base. A&M, it's right in your backyard, and you're still not going to do it. Still not going to do it because, oh, we're in the big bad SEC. And I've had A&M fans in the comments all week talking from that last video, talking about how they're not scared to play Baylor. Effing prove it, man. Just prove it. You might not be afraid to, but your administration is. And that's why it took hours for us to figure out who Baylor was going to play in this game. It's just classic scared Aggies, but they'll say, oh, we're in the SEC. We play one, yada, yada, Casey Smith. And yet they will avoid facing a Texas team at every single turn. You cowards. You absolute cowards. And now you can't even duck UT anymore. You could duck all the rest of us. One of these years, the SEC is going to have to say, you know what? No, this is where you're slotted here. This is where you finished, and it's in Texas. You're going to play the Texas Bowl, because this today was annoying. On Sunday, where we just had to wait for 2 hours to figure out who was going to play who, because A&M did not want to do this. Like, your only excuse is gone, Aggies, okay? Because UT is there too. You can't just hold over every Texas school that you play in the SEC and we don't, and therefore you're better. You can't do that anymore. You've lost that excuse. So why don't, if you actually have the best program in Texas, where you're going to bring in the best recruiting class every year, you're going to buy the best talent this state has to offer. If you're going to do that, then why don't you prove you can actually beat one of these teams? Because right now you are sledding uphill. We already know you can't beat all these teams. You didn't beat UT. And I would be really worried if I were an Aggie, well, about being an Aggie, but I would be really, really worried about facing Baylor. And I honestly wouldn't love my chances against Tech either. And it is just wrapped up in this loser mentality that A&M has had for a long time and has really come up big time since the Jimbo Fisher era started, and is now ushered into the Mike Elko era as well. They're lazy. They have more opt-outs than anybody. It's a bad culture there. They were the first ones that were just buying all these recruits, couldn't do anything with them. 7-5, 8-4 in a good year. And they're avoiding facing all the teams from their state because they're so worried that if they play Tech or Baylor, they're going to lose those bragging rights, and everyone's going to see them as frauds, including their recruits and the people that give money to them. Absolute cowards. And again, am I surprised? No, I'm not surprised by this, but it just rings true all the time. All the time. I just, they're so bad. Tell your Aggie friend a compliment, man. Okay, because they are so self-conscious, they can't even pick the right bowl game. So, Bear the Truth asks, are there any Baylor players expected to not play in the bowl game? Not that I've heard so far. And Baylor's got a great position in terms of how many guys they're bringing back. And a lot of guys who are going to be NFL prospects next year, not this year. So that's a really good thing. I don't think they will. I mean, every team has an opt-out or two, right? At least. So they probably will have something. And DeQuan Finn will technically be an opt-out because he's looking to get another year of medical redshirt. But nope, they're probably not going to have opt-outs, not many. And that's another thing that A&M just couldn't afford to deal with. So anyway, let me know what you think about the Aggies. Drop that down in the comments below. I know there are plenty of Aggies watching, either live or after the fact. So tell me why you're not afraid to face Baylor or Tech. And that just so happens that you're playing USC in Vegas, because that's a very natural bowl for A&M to play in. This is just classic. Oh, we're going to be at the table with the big boys. We play USC in our bowl games, not the Rose Bowl. No, the Vegas Bowl when USC is spiraling. That is so classic A&M. Thank you for making it to the end of the video, and thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network part of your daily routine. We have got you covered with the most Baylor Bears athletics coverage of any outlet that's not directly tied into Baylor University. So if you want more of that, be sure to like and subscribe. Ring that notification bell to get notified every time we're dropping a video here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks, and sick 'em.